Welcome to Wire Guild. The tutorial that I'm going to show you is a solution for those large beads that we all have. We see them, they're gorgeously pretty, we want to turn them into something, and this is what we're going to be able to turn them into, which I think works really well. So you need that large focal bead, a couple of accent beads, they add a nice balance to it. Make sure that they're matching with the colour of the main bead. Some 0.8mm 20 gauge round wire. If you've only got 1mm, that's fine as well, that would be 18 gauge. Some 0.4mm or 26 gauge fine wire. Now this is my focal bead. Now I bought this years ago from a very talented glass artist, and I loved it. Beautiful. It's iridescent, it's got great colours in it. However, what on earth do I do with it? I quite like it sort of upwards, sideways not so much, and you end up either threading it with a thong or just sort of leaving it, and it's not great. So I decided I'd try and come up with an idea that is better than the standard way. Now what I want to do is demonstrate to you first what would be a really simple way of being able to wear this bead. So you could put a curl in the bottom of your wire, you can pop your wire through the bead so that your bead doesn't drop off the end, and then holding on to the top you could create a curl which then your thong, wire, whatever would go through. But it's just a bit boring. Now if you had it that way, I suppose you could add a chain either side to it and it would sit in the middle and you can move it, but I don't know, it's just a little bit boring. And I think when you've got such a really pretty bead, you want to do something a little bit more special with it. So I've got my 0.8 and I am just cutting a couple of lengths off it. I'm not being too precise on how long they are. I'll try to smooth the wire out a bit. They're probably about, they're 6.5, 7 inches long, but I probably won't use all that. And I'm going to get some 0.4 wire. Now the reason I'm getting some 0.4 is often when you have these huge beads, you put smaller beads with it as an accent. Now I've got these gorgeous sort of iridescent purple green pearls which are going to go gorgeous with this bead. But the pearls, I mean the faux pearls, but they're still pearls, and they have this teeny tiny little hole in them, which you just, look, I'll show you. I don't know whether you can actually, whoop. It'd probably be better if I didn't throw it across the room. But if I try and put like a normal thickness of wire through, not a chance. The hole's just too small. So I'm going to take some of my 0.4, excuse me, frog in my throat, and just unwind some of that. I'm unwinding quite a bit because I'm going to do some weaving with it as well. And I'm going to start off by using one of my beads, one of my very slippy beads which keep bouncing off, there we go, and I'm going to take that down till it's roughly in the middle of the wire. Now I've probably got what, maybe a good 12-14 inch, which will be what, 30-40 centimeters. And then I put the bead through, and then I've just wrapped one of the wires around. Then the other wire, not the one that I wrapped around, I'm going to thread the next bead on. So, on you go, little bead. Push it down to the next one. Taking the other wire, I'm going to go around the bead, up the top of the bead, all the way around, wrapping around the wire that's gone through the middle of the bead. Then I'm going to find another bead because that one that shot off went somewhere on the floor and I don't know where it's gone, so I'll just get another bead from over here off the string. There we go. And I'll thread that one on. I do like odd numbers, so I would never sort of do 2 at the end. I'd always do 3s or 5s or 1 but not two. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So I'm just taking the other wire and wrapping it around the wire that went through the middle of the bead again, and then straightening my wires off. And then you have this little row of beads which have a wire going over the edge of them, and they're kind of nice because you can manipulate them down the end, so they don't have to be dead straight if you don't want them to. So I'm going to take my wires and I've got one end significantly longer than the other, so I'm going to pass the longer end through first, and then the shorter end, if it will go through. It's quite a large hole down the middle of this bead, but it doesn't matter. So I've got my fine wire coming out, and I've got my beads. Now look, you see, I want to bend it to one side like that, it'll stay in position. So I've got my little beads coming down the end to produce a little tail, and that can be a straight one or it can be bent to one side. And just, sorry, I'm trying to get everything rearranged. I want these to be the same length, so I'm just going to trim the longer one down slightly. These are going to form our sort of design piece and bales. So I'm going to use one of the thinner wires and taking hold of one of the thicker wires, I'm going to wrap around the thicker wire so it's quite tight to the top of that hole. Not super duper tight, because then you'll have no movement. And I've wrapped round a couple of times. Then I'm going to bring the other wire in and put it at the side of it, and then I'm going to weave between the two wires. Let's just get those parallel and get my wire straight, and then I'm going to go twice around the top one. There's one and two, and then as it goes through the middle I'll then come down to the bottom wire and wrap around there twice, two through the middle, back up to the top wire, around through the middle, and then down to the bottom one. Now I'm going to keep this same weave going, not terribly far. You don't need the bales to be huge, but I'm probably going to keep going for maybe let's have a see, about half an inch. So that would be just over a centimetre. Now I've speeded the film up because really once you've seen me weave backwards and forwards once or twice, you know what I'm doing. You don't need to see me doing it the whole way through. And then turn around and I'm weaving the other side. So I did my sort of half an inch, I turned the whole piece around, and then I started to weave the other way using the other wire that was there. So one of the wires has gone towards the front of the piece, one of the wire is weaving towards the back of the pieces. And once I've got a reasonable amount on both sides, so it's not a lot, but it's taking me beyond the edge of the bead, I'm going to close that up so it's tight, and then twist the wires that are on the top so that two wires lay down the front of the bead like that. And then I'm going to keep working on the wires that are sticking upwards, and I'm going to keep that weave going. Now if you haven't done any weaving before, you may notice how I push my thumb and my finger in. That is keeping the wires tight and well down the piece. One of the things with weaving that can make it look slightly untidy is if your weave itself is a little bit baggy. I've just whizzed this faster because I'm doing exactly the same thing, twice round, twice, and in the back. You may notice that I've allowed the wires to sort of flare out slightly at the end, and that's going to be part of the design, so don't worry about that. It's just moving out. I'm going to move it a little bit further in a minute. So that's held in quite nicely. I'm going to grip now because I've woven probably about another maybe an inch, so 2.5 centimeters, and then gripping it with my round nose pliers and bending it over. So half of my wire now is down the front, half's down the back, and I'm putting a nice curve in those wires, and I'm going to continue to weave to take into account that curve. Now keep pressing. If you can't do it with your fingers, use your pliers or use both. As long as you keep everything nice and tight, and always remember, a weave that is getting larger, or your frame wires are getting further apart, is always easier to do than wires if you're working the other way. So you're starting at a wide area and you're moving to a small area, the wires just slip all the time. It's terribly hard to do. But if the wires are getting wider, further apart, it's actually much easier. So I always try and arrange it that it's going that way around. So let's turn it around, just push that up so it's tight. And then I can put the same curve in these wires as I did on the other side. There we go. And then just start weaving with the other wire on the other side, because you've got like sort of one end of the wire on one side and one end on the other. And start to weave those backwards and forwards. There we go. Now I'll just speed this up. So I'm still doing the same thing, twice round, moving to the other side, twice round, move to the back. You know, all on a figure of 8. Making sure that the wires are pushed up with my fingers or my thumb or my pliers or whatever's handy, to make sure that those wires stay up near the top nice and tight. Once I've woven down about the same distance as I did on the other side, I can wrap around a few times and finish the wire off. And I'm going to do that on the front in a minute. So I've wrapped around and I've snipped off, and I've just pressed that up close. Now then, you can see at this point that you can put a chain or a ribbon or anything through quite easily, and I've got these flared wires at the side, and I'm going to trim those down. If you wanted, you could join those together and make a feature of a join. It would depend on your bead shape and how you liked it. Or you could twist them, you could make spirals, you could go all the way down to the bottom where the bead is. There are so many different things you could do with these end wires to make your piece individual. But I'm just going to trim them off back and front so they're the same length. There we go. And then I'm going to put a little curl in this end. Now, if you use the balling technique that's in the skill set, you could have balled those and left them as they were. But I'm just going to curl them outwards with the finest end of my round nose pliers and bend the other one outwards. Like I say, right at the tip of my round nose pliers. And the same on the 2 wires at the back. So that one goes out. Whoops. That one goes out. Doesn't matter if this is wiggling around and the beads not staying put, it's fine. Just close that one up a little bit tighter. Right then. And I could leave it like that. I could use some fine wire and join those loops together, or I could bend them inwards like this. I like this this curl. It always reminds me of the end of an elephant's trunk. So I just bent those in, and it'll just give me like a little wiggly frilly edge, which actually really goes with this bead, because the swirls on the bead itself are very much this sort of up and down curls and swirls, so it goes well with that. If you have a more geometric bead, it could be that you want to do something a little bit more angular with yours. But let me just flatten that down and squeeze it out. There we go. One of the nicest things to do with a wide bead, I mean it flops around, but I quite like the fact that it moves. It moves so that you can see the shine and the iridescence of your bead on the inside. I don't like a normal chain through these. What I tend to do is make a beaded necklace to actually put them on, because you've got plenty of room through that top bit, and I tend to like to use the same beads that I've used at the bottom of the piece. It doesn't look quite so. I'm just giving that a bit more of a squeeze. Look, there's loads of room there. And just get this string of beads and I'll show you. And these are not a finished necklace or anything like that, but I'm sure you can imagine if I pop this through. There. It looks gorgeous. So you've taken a very large bead that you didn't know what to do with, made a really simple bail to hang it from, and then if you make yourself a simple, string of beads, string of pearls to hang it on, it looks really great. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Thank you very much for watching. Happy wrapping!